You're listening to the Trading Bear podcast. This is episode 52, The Daily Show.
Mystery player. Position.
Midfielder.
Start price.
63p.
Current price.
£1.12.
PB.
8p.
MB.
0.
Dividend yield.
6.9%.
Welcome back. Thanks for joining in. In today's news, the market looks to have finally settled after a choppy weekend led by position gate. Initially then, there was huge sell-offs for the likes of Kimmich and Hazard, as Opta changed the position status from defender to midfielder and forward to midfielder respectively. Kimmich went from £2.50 to £2 in a huge drop, only for Opta to change the majority of players' positions back again, causing Kimmich's price to once more shoot up to £2.50. Although not directly responsible, it was nevertheless an embarrassing few days for Football Index headquarters, with Adam Cole set to release a statement on Tuesday the 21st of May. Stay tuned for that one in the next episode. Elsewhere, Romelu Lukaku to Serie A rumours grow ever stronger. This time an Italian report indicates that Lukaku is involved in a player swap plus cash deal, with Inter paying $20 million in cash, as well as sending Perisic to Manchester. Perisic was close to signing for Arsenal last January, but after pushing hard for the switch, was rumoured to have been persuaded to stay under the promise he would be allowed to leave the EPL this summer. Either way, Lukaku's time at United certainly seems limited. And lastly, a couple of management appointments were made today. Steve Clarke was confirmed as the new Scotland coach, and Graham Potter has moved from Swansea to Brighton, after two clubs agreed a $3 million compensation package. Potter is known for his attractive playing style, fierce determination and a strong collective spirit. That in the words of his new boss, Tony Bloom, the Brighton chairman. Now, strong collective spirit is not perhaps how one might describe the French capital club Paris Saint-Germain. Neymar seemingly more interested with being seen with Rihanna than being with his teammates, snubbing the Sunday night Liga awards last night. However, it was his teammate Kylian Mbappe who stole the headlines at the said awards, with his acceptance speech after winning the Liga Player of the Year award. Upon accepting, Mbappe seemed to indicate he was ready for a move away, saying, "I'm arriving at the second turning point in my career. I have discovered an enormous amount of things here. It is maybe the moment to have more responsibilities, maybe at PSG with pleasure, or elsewhere for a new project. In any case, thanks everyone." He later then went on to add more in the mix zone for journalists after the ceremony is finished, stating, "I said what I had to say. When you're in such an occasion, you can send messages. I think I have sent mine. If I speak more, it will be too much, and that is not the message I wish to send." This of course sent traders into a mini frenzy then, with Mbappe's price rising 13p to give him a current price of £5.37. Now it's thought by those closest to him that he doesn't actually want to move, at least not for a year, but the speech was more a warning that he wants more power within the club, particularly a bigger say in who they sign. And as Spider-Man once said, "With great power comes great responsibility." I wonder then if a 20-year-old Mbappe is speaking just a little bit too soon. One player who has a much stronger chance of leaving his club in the summer, or indeed this week, is rising German star Julian Brandt. The current Bayer Leverkusen player, along with close friend and German compatriot Kai Havertz, thriving under the coaching of Peter Bosz. Bosz is a perfect example of how a new manager can change the fortunes of players and teams on Football Index. He brings a heavy possession-based style to his teams, and as a result, the baseline of players like defender Jonathan Tah, Havertz and Brandt themselves have greatly risen. But despite all of this, Brandt has taken a fairly big tumble in the past couple of days, 9p to be exact, to take him to a current price of £1.62. The player has had a great season. He's third in the leading assist makers in the Bundesliga, behind Kimmich and Sancho. He's producing very decent PB scores, and Leverkusen even qualified for the Champions League at the weekend. So why the drop? Well, some traders were hoping that Brandt would be moving to the EPL, with strong rumours linking him to Liverpool as well as Spurs. This is now thought not to be happening, with Brandt instead opting for a move to join Sancho at Borussia Dortmund. Leverkusen sporting director Rudi Völler added that Brandt's future will be sorted in the coming days, stating, "We know exactly which clubs have not. Brandt has some requests, and in the next 6 or 7 days, there will be a decision. We go into this episode's prospect player now, a player who I feel could do well in the near future and attract buys. For this episode, we head to the city of Turin and towards one of the true greats of the game, Cristiano Ronaldo. Now, it seems a bit strange to call 34-year-old Ronaldo a prospect player, but remember, a prospect player on this show is simply defined by a player who I feel could offer some sort of value in the short to medium term, and therefore not defined in the traditional meaning of a young and upcoming player. So why Ronaldo, and why now? Well, threefold. Firstly, we really are now entering the days of heavy media as opposed to match day dividends. With 4 out of the 7 days this week alone paying the top 3 in media, it's perhaps a good idea to have at least some of your portfolio dedicated to MB players. Ronaldo is of course one of these, never too far away from the media headlines. Secondly, he has the bonus of the Nations League coming up in a few weeks' time on the 5th of June. Now remember, these games do count for in-play dividends. And thirdly, at a current price of £2.45, he's also the cheapest of the likely perennial MP winners this summer. This episode's prospect player, therefore, is Portugal's all-time leading appearance maker and indeed goal scorer, Cristiano Ronaldo. Let's head into your questions now then. And for this show, both questions arrive from the same source, with Tom Walker on Twitter having 2 questions, wishing to know the following. Question 1. Hi Trading Bear, good work with the podcast. What is the difference between reserve price and market Q? Let's start with market Q then first, Tom. Very simply, when you decide to sell a player, you have 2 main options. Instant sell, for the price stated on screen, or market sell. If you decide to market sell, your shares join the list of traders that already have that player in queue to be sold. Exactly like waiting in line to pay for goods at the supermarket. Those who've been waiting in line the longest get their shares sold first. Now this process can take a matter of minutes, or a matter of days or even weeks, depending on how popular the player is. At present, without order books, you have no idea whereabouts you are in the queue, and if the price drops lower than you were hoping to sell for, well, that's just unlucky, that's the price you get. This in theory is where the reserve price comes in. Let's say I wanted to sell Mason Greenwood. He is currently priced at £5 when I decide to sell to market. I haven't eaten my wheat bix this morning, and part of me thinks he's still good value at £4.80, so I want to keep him if his price doesn't sell by this point. Therefore, I set my reserve price at £4.80. Now let's say his price drops further to £4.60 for reasons unbeknown to mankind, but I'm still in the queue waiting for my shares to be sold. £4.60 is obviously below my reserve price of £4.80, so my sell request will now be automatically cancelled, and my Greenwood shares are no longer on sale. Now at the start of this scenario I mentioned this was all in theory, Tom, as to be quite honest, the reserve price is not to be relied upon. Some traders say it has never worked, others say it partially works, and some like myself just pray for the day order books are released. Moving on to Tom's second question now. When you sell a player, do you keep some futures or do you sell the lot? Well, this completely depends upon the player and the context or reason for the sell, Tom. I might, for example, be selling the player for a huge profit. I might be selling the player for a small profit to generate funds, or I might be selling the player at a loss to prevent further losses. In all 3 instances, I could, and indeed have, with exception to the third scenario mentioned there, both sold the player all in one go and sold a player in stages. As a general rule, I would probably say I sell the player all in one go 60 to 70% of the time, with the other 30 to 40% of the time selling the player in stages. I'll use an actual trade I made a couple of months ago as an explanation. I purchased a certain amount of shares in Callum Hudson-Odoi on the eve of the first rumours that Sarri might be sacked, near the end of January time. Over the coming weeks and months, his price rocketed. I was now happy to sell some for profit, but wasn't 100% sure that his price had reached absolute peak, so I decided to sell half and keep half. I later sold the remaining half for slightly more than the first half. But in general, if I'm not sure that a player has any more potential gain in the short to medium term, I'll tend to keep half and sell half. If I convince myself that either I'm happy to take the profit made on that player, or to cut my losses on a player that I feel will just continue to fall, then I'll sell all in one go. And that's it for this episode. You can download and subscribe to the show on iTunes, Spotify and Podbean. Head over to the website to send in a question, tradingbearpodcast.com, Alternatively, you can find me on Index Gain or Twitter under the name Trading Bear. Thanks for listening and stay tuned for the Mystery Player.
Mystery player. Position.
Midfielder.
Start price.
63p.
Current price.
£1.12.
PB.
8p.
MB.
0.
Dividend yield.
6.9%.
Trading Bear. Today's mystery player was Napoli playmaker Fabian Ruiz.